that this free verse thing is a paradox for me, because verse means constraint, right? It's constraint. So you cannot be free when you have constraint. But it's true that what you said, the greatest poetry has been channeled by poets who were seeking for freedom. They were looking for freedom, and they were trying to access freedom in constraint, within constraint. I'm talking about the canons, the religious canons of, of the world. These are highly, highly beautiful and highly stylized poetical texts. So, and this is all, absolutely extravagant stories. So there is a lot of freedom in that, but the form is really, really, I mean, they've been thinking this through when they've been, passing on forms, poetic forms from generations to generations. And so where there is tradition, there's no freedom. This is the paradox. The paradox, we need forms, but we need forms as vessels to allow freedom to come up, to emerge. So that's really, really beautiful.
Or I could say freedom with a point to it.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
what you just did with your hands, think of the form being a funnel.
Yes.
Means there's a point
there's a
to
point.
it. There's literally a point
Absolutely.
to it as you do this.
Absolutely.
So it's a freedom that is of merit, of worth, of consequence, of that's articulating something to somebody else rather than wasting their time. And indeed, I hope that you don't mind, but I often say very quietly to one person at a time and never to the person who wrote it, total free expression and asking someone else to pay attention often turns masturbatory or vomitory. And I may have said these things to you last time we met. Perhaps I don't go around saying that stuff because, as Ted Kooser says in one of his books, it doesn't hurt anybody. So it doesn't make the world a worse place for people to have that outlet or to find that creative thing to do rather than a destructive thing to do. But for me, listening to it, I once heard a poet the poetry festival. It was outdoors with several stages. My friend and I went to go to another stage. And what's that? And I went back. That same young poet was still talking about boyfriends that had hurt her. And your point is? Your point is?
Yeah, what's the point?
And yet, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's just, okay, and my time is, that's it.
Yeah.
Long poem, the Iliad, is thrilling and it's pretty darn long.
I'm also very much interested in your opinion about emotions and catharsis in poetry, and you also have catharsis in art, obviously. So when something happens to you from a deep personal existential situation that you've been going through, then you choose to make a poem out of it, or you choose to make a painting out of it.
Yeah. Now,
what's the value?
Choosing is a big word I'll use later. I mean, the fact that you have the choice is what makes you the superhero. That gives you the powers that you weren't born with. But it's, to a great extent, once you've entered the discipline of writing or being open to being smitten, it's as much the poem takes you to write it, summons you to write it, as you choosing to write a poem. And if you're giving yourself the exercise, okay, I'm going to write about this today, that's something, that's like journaling. That's not necessarily the thing that's the poem yet. And how to tell the difference. Mark Twain talked about this, the ability to distinguish, or I say in my book, Playing the Audience too, it's 5%. Selection, discrimination is 95% in talent. This idea is worth working on, and these things that I wrote inspired by that idea should stay in the poem, and these things are not that poem. Yeah. That goes there, and this goes into my journal for something else. That's 95% of writing according to Mark Twain.
Yeah.
So, because especially, and then the other part is idea fluency, having lots of ideas. But when you can, and then what I think are the keys that take you from void to something, or take you to being open to being summoned by the poem to write it, is the openness for one, but also the caring about the world, caring about nature, caring about the divine disappointment, perhaps, or expectation, or having hurt someone, or knowing someone who's been hurt needlessly, or whatnot. Caring. And that caring to turn into a caring that is not merely expressive, caring about my own hurts or pains or joys or triumphs, but caring about something that wants to communicate with somebody else, to help, to invite, to convince, to share, that can help the world by changing the listener, reader, viewer, audience forever. Now, when it's convincing, of course, the word for the use of language, the art of using language to convince, that's called rhetoric. But in the last 60 years, my lifetime, the word rhetoric has gotten short shrift or bad shrift. That's the mother of all language creation, and perhaps even artistic creation. Yeah, rhetoric to convince.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, it's wonderful that you talk about this, because we have forgotten as poets and artists that the father of poetry in the West is Aristotle. He canonized what poetry and tragedy and art are supposed to be. And all of these disciplines are connected. They're connected through emotion. They're connected through the desire or the power to dominate emotion with reason. That is not to destroy emotion, but to control it. Again, constraint.
His book, The Poetics, it's a short book.
It's a short book.
And it starts the whole ball rolling.
It's true. Right. Poetics is actually a very short book. And I keep wondering why poets don't read it.
Oh my gosh, I know. I had it in a political philosophy class. Aristotle's the book. To write so daringly that they threaten the safety of the truth to power.
Yes, truth to
and I go, well,
it
puts you in a whole different ballpark than writing about flowers or the boyfriend that hurt you or whatever. It's a different ballgame. But that's what the Greek, and Aristotle wasn't writing at the time of the classical Greek plays, which were all in verse, hence poetics refers to drama also. Both.
Absolutely.
And dance. It was a mixed ritual that was all one. They had different muses. Terpsichore and Eroto were different aspects, but they were all in the same ritual, all within the same piece of art or day of art, with an opening comedy and 3 tragedies in competition all during the day, from sunrise to sunset in the Greek festivals.